Hello. Good afternoon. Before I start, I'd just like to take a few moments just to say thank you to the all ENOG product committee and to all ENOG organization for allowing me to be here to present my work. It's really a pleasure for me. And so thank you. I'm really, really happy to be here. For who doesn't know me yet, my name is Diego. I'm a part of the NLX software development team. And I'm actually in charge for designing and implementing the company automation platform. And yeah, today we're going to talk about automation mainly. So, as I was saying, we're going to talk about peering and automatic route server configuration. As you probably know, and yeah, probably also using it, having a route server is a really common way for implementing and managing a peering network, but unfortunately, for the time being, it's also come with few severe limitations that are not really encouraging organizations enjoying route servers, and that's, we found it's really a pity. So what are these limitations? First of all, I think that the biggest limitation you have is that when you're joining a route server, you are going to appear in the same way with all the members that are on the route server, and some organizations are not really willing or not really happy to do it. There is no real possibility to have kind of filtering or to select do you want to peer or you want to peer not. Of course, there are some approaches like using location-based community strings or other kind of filtering ways, but these are a bit limited. They are not really fitting our purposes. So we just decided to implement something to go over it. On the side of it, there is also the fact that what I could see is that organizations are not really trusting route servers for the perception they have of it. It's kind of a black box for them. They have no idea what's happening inside it, and that's not really encouraging for them. Together with the fact that at the moment, I was a bit surprised when I entered in this world. I just realized that most of the work is still performed manually, and the management is being done by email. And that is really time-consuming and error-prone with all like network engineers typing numbers inside big configuration file. That is not really optimal. In the end, in case you have a big distributed network as NLX has, where you can actually connect to our peering network in Stockholm, as in London, as in Amsterdam, as in Sofia, or also latency became a kind of a key factor for the selection of your peers, because you may want to peer with the organization that are more close to you, latency-wise. And so as NLX, we decided to tackle all this list of problems, and we decided to implement a solution that, first of all, needed to offer a maximum flexibility in the selection of your peers. What this means giving, again, full control to organization of their peering sessions. Has to be totally automated. We completely wanted to remove the human factor for the configuration chain. And with the fact that you are automating everything, removing completely the human factor from the configuration process, this solution needs to be really easy to set up for network engineer, extremely easy to use for the users, and needs to be secure, because you don't want somebody just playing around with your network. Has to be fault tolerant, because in an automated system, you want this system to be resilient to configuration error. You want your network always to be up, and you want somebody always stay there and monitoring it 24/7, otherwise there's no point having an automatic system. And has to be feedback rich. With feedback rich, I mean that being the system completely automated, you want to actually have the possibility to know what it's doing anytime. In the end, it needs to be easy to integrate. You want to be able to use the system integrated in your maybe already existing automation system or your infrastructure. So it needs to be easy to connect and to interface with. And yeah, actually we did it. What we realized is called NLX Router Configurator. It's not such an original name, but it's the best we can come out with. And I'm going to show it to you in a bit. But first I want to spend a couple of words about it to tell you what it does and what you can do with it. First of all, allows you to have full fine-grained control on your IP session. With full fine-grained control, I mean that you can select which peering session you want to allow to connect with you and which one not, based on their IP, based on the location where they are connecting, or based on the latency between where you are connecting and where your peers are connecting. And the nice thing is that these three factors are not excluding each other, they get combined, so you can decide to peer with everybody within 10 milliseconds for your connection port, but not connecting in London, and then there are a couple of guys that you don't really like, so you can just decide to filter them out. It supports filtering and prepending. It's totally automated. There is absolutely no human interaction in the whole configuration process. It has a pretty nice web interface and is designed modularly. Why this is important? Because we have this module communicating each other with REST API and webhooks. That's important. First of all, because it makes the communication really easy for other systems, and also allows you to execute just single portion or specific steps of the whole configuration workflow. And this is a feature, now we are live with it since a few months. It's been really, really appreciated in testing phase and also in production by our network engineers. Sometimes they just want to perform some specific operation on the network and just use the system. And yeah, last but not least, it's 100% open source based. I'm pretty proud of this point. It's just using open source technology, and I think it's pretty nice thing. So I have a small video, short video to show you how it's working. Yeah, as you can see, the interface, it looks pretty slick, pretty simple. On the, just a sec, sorry. Yeah, on the left side, you have the interactive map with all the points where you can connect to an LAX network with all our location and point of presence. On the right side, you have the list of all the active peering sessions where you can select who you want to peer with. So they have their IP address, name, AS number, and yeah, you just have the full list, you can select the one you want. So if you want to make an example, let's suppose I'm a customer from an organization, in this case called NerdNet, with a peering port in Amsterdam. So I select the port from the drop-down menu. Amsterdam gets selected on the map, get highlighted by the red circle, and I just decide I want to peer with everybody really close to me. So I slide back, and you can see all the location actually fading and getting unselected, all the locations that are more far away, in this case, than 2 milliseconds. They get automatically unselected. You can review your list, and at a certain point, when you're reviewing your list, you just realize that a couple of locations get filtered out that you still want to peer. In this case, are London and are Brussels, so you can re-add them, and you can see on the right column the peering session getting reselected. And after it, you can make a review of your selection. Maybe you spot a guy that you're not really happy to connect with, so you can just filter him out. And at this point, you have done. The only things you need to do is to simply click on the apply button. You have this dialog box. Once you type in the authentication token, has been sent there for security reason by email. The configuration gets automatically deployed on the route server within a couple of seconds. I think it's pretty nice, honestly. So this is what the route server configurator is. This is what you can do with it. I will now show you what's happening behind the scene. So let's assume that each of the gray hexagons are a specific part of our automation platform. Obviously, we start from the UI. About the UI, there is not so much to say about it. It's just a JavaScript UI realized using React. Really simple as that. You make your selection in the UI, and when you confirm, the data are sent to a REST API server. That is a Django application using the Django REST framework and Postgres as a database to store the data. And this application actually simply stores the data. This is what it is its function. Really straightforward, nothing really fancy about it. What is interesting instead is what's happening when the data are saved. Actually, when you save the data, a signal is triggered against our automation orchestrator that is realized using a software called Stackstorm. And we are going to extensively talk about it later. This software, it actually catches the signal, he understands that something changed in the route server configuration, so he fetches the new configuration data from the REST API server, he builds a new valid configuration file, and he automatically sends it for the route server for deployment. So you have the full chain. You have UI, takes the data, he sends it to a REST API server, file is built, route server gets reconfigured. You have the full chain like that. So in detail, I will skip the part on UI REST API server. It's a bit off topic for this conference. There is also not so much to say about it. And I will focus on the automation orchestrator. As I say, it's realized using a software that is called Stackstorm. I don't know if somebody here knows it, is familiar with it. Nobody? Yeah, one guy. Congrats. So I will spend a couple of minutes more to tell you something about it. Stackstorm is a completely generic automation platform. You can use it to automate wherever you want, even your house. And we choose it for many reasons. The first of all is a Brocade product. It's been taken over by Brocade a few months ago, and Brocade is a really good partner of us. We are using a lot of their hardware. They are actually developing a tight integration between their hardware and the Stackstorm platform, so for us it was just a great choice. It runs on Linux, is implemented in Python, and actually Python is also the reference language to implement and to program on top of it. And this technology, we are widely using it within LIX. We really like them. So for us, it was just a perfect fit. What's more important about the now is made is essentially what you can do with it. So essentially, Stackstorm, to make the story short, allows you to define actions that are representing what needs to be executed. In the end of the story are just functions that get called and they do whatever you want. You can define in which condition, and you can define this condition really in a specific way when you want this action to be executed, and you can stitch them together to have also really complex workflow if you decided to use the OpenStack Mistral engine that is fully supported. On the side of this technical feature, a really nice thing is that if you want to check what the system is doing, you don't really need to go to look into log files or to look for the time when an event occurred or something happened. You just open the interface, you have the full history of everything that's been executed. You have task by task, you click on the task that maybe has a failure or he has some problem, you open it, you can access to what was the input, what was the output of the task, what was the outcome, check all the internals. So it's really handy, especially when something goes bad in the configuration phase. The software comes distributed in plugins. That's really handy for software management and deployment. A plugin is, in the Stackstorm world, is called the automation pack. And they are simply directory and they are completely generic, so you can have a pack to interact with a specific, if you're really specific software, or you can have a pack with where you put like network configuration actions or system management actions, just completely generic. There is a really growing community. Also, Brocade is really pushing a lot to make the community bigger. They are implementing a lot of nice automation packs for a lot of widely used software. You can just download them at exchange.stackstorm.org. And we are actually using some of packs that are already made. For example, we're using the Slack pack. Every time something happened on our automation platform, I just receive a text message on my phone saying, hey Diego, this happened, there was a problem, go to take a look. And that's what Stackstorm is about. As I was saying, you're probably gonna find what you need already implemented by somebody else. You can improve it, you can collaborate because everything is open source. In case you don't find what you're looking for, you need to implement it yourself. And this is actually what we did with Bird. So we implemented an automation pack called Bird. That is a completely generic pack to interact with the Bird route server. I really want to stress the fact that this is integrated in our automation platform, but this pack is totally generic. There is nothing really linked to NLIX, to the NLIX environment in it. So you can just take it and use it as is. And what it does, it's actually offering 2 actions. One action for generating a new bird configuration file, one action for deploying, and also an extra workflow that stitches the 2 actions together. So first you generate a file, then you deploy it. Generation, I tried to summarize it in the slide, is actually an atomic process. It starts with some data, it ends with a file. You can execute the action really atomically. And as an input, you have 3 different kinds of data. You have, first of all, the user input, that is mostly the selection you did on the interface or the data containing your peer selection. In our case, it's coming from our REST API server, but you can decide to type the data in the interface. You can send it with HTTP request against a webhook. The important thing is just that you are in a legal format. On the side of this user input, you have the values contained in the stackstorm configuration. Just for you to understand, an automation pack in stackstorm can have a configuration file that is a simple YAML file where you can define each kind of value or variable you are willing to use in your actions. And in this case, we use this configuration file to store all the static information about our peering network. So you can have your network name, the IP of your route server, you can have your AS number, all this kind of data. On the side of these 2 different data, there is the template. The template actually is the skeleton of the bird configuration file that will be generated, and is a text file. It's just a Jinja2-based template, completely generic. So each network engineer can just type the configuration file you prefer, and it's just going to work. One of the nicest things about it is that it's extremely flexible. What I mean that you can use in the template each value you have defined in your configuration file. So I create a parameter in my configuration file called network name. In my template, I can use network name as a placeholder. And is a bit more work in phase of configuration for network engineers, but give you total flexibility to configure your route servers in the way you want. These 3 kinds of data, they get into the generation algorithm, and as an output, you have a bird configuration file stored locally in the location you defined in your configuration file. It gets stored there, the action ends there. You can just decide to use this feature of the pack. In case you also want to deploy a file, there is a second action that is deploy config. What deploy config does, it actually deploys the configuration on the configure route server. It's important to know that as the generation action, also this action is atomic. Assuming that your stackstorm is running on a different machine than the route server, that your route server, you can just decide to use the action to deploy any configuration file that is locally present on the stackstorm machine. So you can take a file, build it outside, build it with a script, write it manually, generate it using the action. Doesn't care. You just take it, you push a button, and it gets deployed on the route server. The file is taken, it gets sent to a route server, the route server validates it using the standard bird tool. And if the validation is okay, it just deploys it. And it sends a message back to stackstorm communicating what the outcome was of the operation. It ends here. So you can also just use the pack as a simply deployment tool. In case you are wondering how this transfer is done, the answer is done over HTTP. And this, I don't know how many of you are familiar with BERT, but it should sound pretty strange because to actually interact with the BERT route server, you need to be logged on the machine. The command line, it works on Unix socket, so you need to be on the machine. And we are sending the file over HTTP. So how this is possible? It's actually possible with a tiny application called Proxy. Is a really, really tiny Python application made with Flask that is running on the route server, and it simply allows you to control your bird route server over HTTP. We have implemented endpoints. These endpoints they contain the command that gets executed with bird, and they get executed with a library that for the time being we implemented in-house. And this gives you the flexibility to implement whatever you want. At the moment, we just have one endpoint to actually deploy a new file, but the software is extremely open for expansions and implement endpoints to get whatever information you want out of your route server. That's Bird Proxy, that it works seamlessly with the Bird pack. That's everything from the technical side. I've been asked me to spend a couple of words about security, because I was mentioning before is a really important topic. So how we ensure the security of our user and our network. First of all, there is an authentication step performed against our backend that is done with the Django REST Framework authentication system. Is a really well-known product, it's widely used, so we consider the authentication system pretty robust. You have our custom engine for rule-based access control. This means that every request it gets in the system, it gets checked, and we perform validation to check if that user is allowed to perform that specific action. Just as an example, I don't want Diego, authenticated user, to be able to configure the peering session of another person. We have the confirmation token you saw in the video, that every time you want to make a new configuration, you have a new token, you have to type it in, otherwise the configuration does not go through the interface. We have the API key authentication system of StackStorm in place, and an extra secret key shared between the StackStorm and the Bird Proxy application. On top of everything, we have a software design based on endpoints, so even if somebody from inside the organization decide that they want to make some damages, he will never be allowed to perform whatever he wants, because the only things that are accessible are the functions that are encoded in our API. And so, yeah, we think it's secure enough. Before we end, I just have a couple of extra questions, a couple of extra things to say. First of all, the NLX route server is already available for all the members of the NLX peering. So if you're already connected with us, probably you're already using it. If you are not using it, you missed the communication email, please reach us. We're going to provide you credentials. And also really important, I'm really happy to say that at the moment we are working on some new features, some new improvements, some optimization that will be released during the summer probably, and we are willing to release everything as open source. So with everything, I mean not the interface and the REST API server that are our really specific things, but the Bird pack and the Bird Proxy application, so all the core of the automation solution, we want to release it open source, and we really hope that a lot of people will embrace the project and will help us in make it better. That was everything for me. For any technical question, just drop me an email, or for any question about NLX peering or something more generic, there is our info address. Just feel free to drop an email, whatever you want. And that's it. Thank you for your attention. Are there any questions for me?
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Thank you, Diego. Just a little question. If you, I guess it said it's open source, but it's not released on GitHub, right?
We are using on GitHub. I say we are going to release it. At the moment, we are just using it internally.
Okay.
We have to make some adjustment in the code to be able to release it open, like making licenses things. And I also want to release it with the new feature we are implementing. We are implementing security features, other things. and I want that thing to be in place for the first release.
Okay.
Because we already have a design for it, we are already working on it, so we want to finish it and then go public with it.
Of course. Can I ask you to, when the final release will be public, to send a hyperlink to our mailing list?
Oh, of course. If you want to do something nice, you can also follow the NLX social channels or the Stackstorm social channel, because it's probably going to also publish on the Exchange Stackstorm portal, and this is probably going to be announced also over there when it's going to be available.
Okay.
Anyway, I will let you know.
Arnold? Just a second, the microphone is not really working. Okay.
It's working now? Okay.
Yep.
So Arnold Nippe from DKIX and PeeringDB. Thank you very much for the presentation, excellent presentation, and the work you did with the route server configuration. I would like to see this at other exchanges as well. One question or suggestion, you said you had fine gate control. What I'm perhaps missing is that users also able to choose them based on ASN. You said it's only on IP addresses?
Yes, actually your IP address is the tiniest level that you can go in the configuration. You can go more specific than the IP address of your specific port. But this is
so you can also select on ASN?
No, you can have multiple IPs on the same IS, but we're probably going to add some...
So for example, I want to say I do not want to peer with this ASN anywhere.
No, the moment you can do it, but it's really a matter of selection. We are planning to add some shortcuts or like filtering or extra predefined selections in the interface to make this kind of filter. But when I say full fine grain, you can be more fine grain than IP level. You will be agree with me.
So you can also filter on ASN level.
Not you. In the vision I have of the software, we want to add to the interface the possibility to select all the IPs that are under a specific AS. But I really want to keep the backend working with at IP level.
Yeah, so my suggestion is that you please add, or I could imagine that because some customers would really like to be able to select on ASN level.
Thank you.
So the second suggestion is might be also on not only on location, but if you abstract one level to be able to select on country level as well.
Yeah, thank you. We will surely think about it.
Any other questions? So just in case, if someone does not know it, we have a Telegram chat of ENOG meeting, and in this Telegram chat there was already an interest to download your bird proxy. So I think the community will very welcome when you will finally put it at the GitHub.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Of course we will. Thank you.